questions raised about the juvenile justice monitoring system. New tonight, we examine how the mass shooting suspect possibly slipped through the cracks while under DJS supervision. Plus, we press the mayor on what he wants changed to hold more young people accountable. An uncertain future for school choice.
This is the future of our state.
Why families are being turned down by the Boost program. Maryland State School Superintendent shrouded in controversy. A look at his future on the job and the major transparency concerns under his tenure. New video sheds a light on the murder of a man in Canton.
I just heard the 4 shots. That's when I found my uncle laying on the ground.
We talk with the victim's nephew who witnessed his uncle's death as the family fights for justice.
The brutality and, the mentality of people, it's sickening.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
We begin with breaking news. Baltimore police say the 15-year-old shot this morning in Northeast Baltimore was trying to carjack an off-duty police officer. Police say the teen pulled a gun on the officer, who then shot at the teenager, grazing him on the wrist. The teen was found several hours later and admitted to being involved in the carjacking attempt. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala. Kai is off tonight. That shooting just the latest incident of crime involving teenagers this summer. Fox 45 News is pushing lawmakers on how they're holding these teens accountable. And it comes as we're learning the 18-year-old charged in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting has been denied bail. Tristan Jackson faces more than 50 charges, including 7 counts of attempted first-degree murder. His previous criminal record has lawmakers' attention. Tonight, Keith Daniels is pressing Mayor Scott on his demands for more juvenile accountability at the state level. But our team coverage begins with Jeff Abel and concerns surrounding the juvenile monitoring system after that 18-year-old's arrest. Jeff?
That's right. The Department of Juvenile Services is struggling to explain allegations tonight that a teenager under state supervision turned up on the other side of town, where he's now accused of attempting to murder.
At the scene of this city's largest mass shooting, it appears accused gunman 18-year-old Tristan Jackson may have broken the law before bullets had ever been fired. Court documents reveal that Jackson was wearing an ankle bracelet and being supervised by the Department of Juvenile Services on the night that Brooklyn block party erupted in gunfire.
They may allow you to be outside your house, but they don't allow you to be all the way on the other side of town.
The terms of his supervision are still unclear, but what is clear, according to those working in the system, is that juveniles are often loosely monitored.
A lot of times monitors will give people, especially juveniles, multiple chances to come into compliance and to report.
If a defendant who's under supervision does step out of bounds, defense attorney Roya Hanna says those monitoring the program often use discretion over which move to make next.
When a violation is reported, either somebody has gone out of bounds, they've cut off their ankle monitor, they break curfew, it sends an email or text alert to the monitor. That monitor is then supposed to call the individual and see if there is a verifiable emergency.
Typically, defendants are instructed to go home, and Hannah says rarely are they penalized until the violation comes before a judge, and sometimes that never happens.
Any home detention system relies on the diligence and ability of the home monitors to adequately maintain contact with the person who's being monitored and report it when there is an infraction.
Earlier today, we asked the Department of Juvenile Services to clarify what happened in this latest case. What were the terms of the suspect's GPS monitor?
Juvenile services have been well documented. The 2022 annual report detailed chronicle boredom among kids in the facilities, limited access to books, and few programs available. In May, Secretary Schiraldi told Fox 45 News some changes were being made, but he recognized that there are cracks in the system. State Delegate Luke Clippinger sent a letter to his fellow lawmakers in Annapolis last month saying the current juvenile justice system is not cutting it.
What's becoming clear is that the Department of Juvenile Services doesn't have the services and doesn't have a plan to deal with kids who are in possession of guns. When that happens, that should be a world-stopping occasion.
A House hearing on the Department of Juvenile Services is scheduled for September 13th. Governor Moore ordered a review of DJS earlier this spring. It's unclear when that will be complete. As Keith mentioned, state lawmakers will hold a hearing next month to address juvenile crime. It's not a special session. It cannot be used to enact new laws or change existing ones. Governor Moore told Fox 45 News he will not be calling a special session. And that brings us to our question of the day. Is the General Assembly responsible for the spike in juvenile crime? So far, 96% of people who voted say no. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com, and that's 96% said yes. Maryland's Boost program is quickly running out of money, and due to the extreme demand, some new students won't receive the scholarship funds they need for private or parochial schools. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains why some families are being turned away.
Families from around the state flocking to Annapolis earlier this year to push lawmakers to keep the funding for the Maryland Boost program. It's a scholarship helping low-income families put their student in a non-public school. After back and forth, lawmakers and Governor Westmore compromised, keeping some funding in place and removing the plan to phase out the program. But now,
the Boost board meeting to order.
The Boost advisory board going over the numbers for this year.
If we renewed everybody who received a scholarship that remains eligible, that's $8,555,800.
And the money just isn't there for everyone. There were just over 7,000 Boost applicants this year. 4,700 are eligible for the funds. 2,395 of those applicants are renewals, students who are already in the program getting a scholarship. Last year, there were about 6,000 applications. With the renewal scholarships and siblings of students already in the program being prioritized, many families are getting this rejection notice.
We have eligible awards to renewals and siblings that exceed the appropriation by $808,000.
Meaning this year, with record high interest, it's unlikely the program will grow with new students.
I think we can say absolutely you will not get an award to anyone who's new and not a sibling.
It speaks volumes to the need for this program.
Rabbi Ariel Sadwin, executive director of Agudath Israel of Maryland, says the depleted scholarship fund shows how popular the program is across the state and exactly why he and others fought to restore funding.
We're hopeful that that speaks volumes going into the next session.
Governor Moore pushing to cut the Boost program earlier this year.
That public dollars should not be going to private schools. Public dollars are going towards ensuring that we're building a world-class public school system for all Maryland students.
Rabbi Sadwin argues that explanation doesn't align with the reality of funding for some programs.
There's so many programs where public dollars are going for private uses, and this is students. This is the future of our state.
The total need from this year's applicants reaching some $18 million, signaling the desire to move out of public school into an alternative learning environment is there. And what Rabbi Sadwin says lawmakers and the governor should take notice.
A message saying that we got to make this a permanent program. We have to put more than $9 million in it annually.
Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, the Boost board says there's not enough funding for siblings of former scholarship recipients, only siblings of current awardees. If you have been denied Boost funding this year, we want to hear from you. You can email us at news@foxbaltimore.com.
It has been a hot start to the work week. This afternoon, our temperatures reached the mid-90s, well above average for this time of year, but we are looking at a nice cool down overnight. Temperatures go from the 80s down to the upper 60s and low 70s, keeping us above average. But tomorrow, we're talking below average temperatures. I'll let you know how hot it gets in my full forecast. Back to you.
Jasmine, thank you. We're coming up on Fox 45 News at 10. Harford County Executive Bob Casserly addressing the murder of Rachel Morin on Fox 45 News. The latest on the search for the suspect and a possible reward. A Canton community shaken after a car theft turned deadly. We're taking a closer look at surveillance video and hearing how family members are remembering their lost loved one. And the clock is ticking for the state school board to decide whether the superintendent will receive a new contract. Project Baltimore explains why his future is uncertain. The state school board running out of time to make a decision. Will the current superintendent receive a new contract? Right now, State Superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury earns more than $300,000 a year to oversee the operation of Maryland public schools, which involves billions of tax dollars. And as Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, his future as superintendent is in doubt.
200 West Baltimore Street, the Nancy S. Grasmick State Education Building. Once a month, the Maryland State Board of Education meets in this building to make important decisions about the future of public education in our state. This week, the board is set to discuss who will lead the Maryland State Department of Education for the next 4 years. Mohammed Chowdhury has been the state superintendent since 2021. But over the last few months, a series of Project Baltimore investigations have raised serious concerns about his leadership. And as the board prepares to decide his fate, there are still many questions that remain unanswered. Unanswered question 1. Is the superintendent's state-issued cell phone still set to auto-delete text messages after 30 days? On April 10th, Project Baltimore filed a public records request for emails and text messages sent and received by the superintendent from January to March of this year. This was the time period when the state, without alerting the public, changed how it reports test scores at low-performing schools. which made far less information about those schools available to taxpayers and parents. When we filed that public records request, we learned 98 text messages from the time we requested were deleted off Superintendent Chaudhary's state-issued cell phone.
If someone willfully deletes a public record, it's a crime, and they can go to jail for up to 3 years. So it's a very serious violation of the law here in Maryland if that was done.
In a statement, the school board explained that the superintendent's phone was set to automatically delete text messages after just 30 days. But 12 of those text messages were not yet 30 days old when Project Baltimore requested to see them, which leads to unanswered question 2. Why were 12 text messages deleted after our public records request was filed on April 10th?
This needs to be investigated immediately as record concealment or destruction of the public record. So those records belong to the people.
According to state law, when a public records request is filed, the documents requested should be preserved. In this case, they were not.
The superintendent should consider resigning his position.
Chaudhary's contract expires in June of next year. If the school board offers him a new contract, it must be finalized by the end of September. But some have expressed concerns, including Governor Wes Moore, who appointed 5 of the 14 current board members. Project Baltimore sent an email to Governor Moore's office asking if he supports renewing Chaudhary's contract, given the most recent controversies. His office told us they are aware of FOX45's reporting and are monitoring the situation.
I do not believe that this is the person that should be leading our state into the future.
Meanwhile, former employees are coming forward with their own concerns, including this whistleblower, who asked not to be identified for fear of retaliation.
As an MSDE employee, were you made aware that the superintendent had this second email?
No.
When FOX45 filed our initial public records request, we learned the superintendent was using a secondary email account to conduct state business. At first, the email was redacted, but when FOX45 challenged the legality of that redaction, MSDE removed the black, and we saw the superintendent was using a hidden email, Mohammed.Chaudhary725 at maryland.gov. Unanswered question 3. Is the state superintendent still using his secondary email account to conduct state business? In a statement, MSDE said Chaudhary used this email as a means of organization because his primary email address receives a myriad of messages from stakeholders every day.
It doesn't make sense. It seems like you're hiding something.
When the board discusses Chaudhary's contract, those discussions will likely take place in closed session, which are not open to the public. But by the end of the board meeting, we should have some idea as to what the board decided. We will keep you updated as we work to get answers. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
New court filings in the Maryland Mosby federal trial claim her attorneys would be willing to speed up jury selection if that means the trial would be moved out of Baltimore. Mosby's defense team doesn't believe she'd get a fair trial in Baltimore, and they want the case moved to Greenbelt. Jury selection is set to begin October 31st. Mosby is facing 4 federal charges, 2 counts of perjury and 2 counts of making a false statement on a loan application. Mosby's team is expected to submit more filings on Wednesday. Coming up, confirmation hearing set for the leaders of 2 of Baltimore's biggest agencies, when the acting police commissioner and acting fire chief are set to appear in front of the city council.
The long hangover. I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. Bud Light still feeling the fallout from the Dylan Mulvaney ad campaign. The businessman now jumping into the controversy.
It was a hot day, but we are getting ready for more mild temperatures. We're talking a cold front moving across the region, and that will result in lower temperatures for the middle of the week. Mid-80s tomorrow, and again on Wednesday, and again on Thursday. However, we have our next chance for showers and storms on Thursday. I'll let you know when else we could expect rain in my Weather Authority forecast.
And as we head to break, a live look at Raven Stadium, all decked in purple as the Ravens are playing tonight. We'll be right back. Taking a look now at the Fox Box top left, a federal appeals court ruled Alabama can enforce a ban on certain gender-affirming medical treatments for transgender children. The legislation made it a felony to treat people under 19 with puberty blockers or hormones. Families challenged that law. The judge lifted a temporary stop on the law today. A trial is scheduled for April. Top right, the American Academy of Pediatrics says spanking children should be banned in all schools. The group notes corporal punishment is legal in public schools in 18 states and says Black and disabled children are most likely to experience corporal punishment. Bottom left, a new military report finds female soldiers often face sexism and harassment in Army Special Operation units. The report made 42 recommendations, including increased training and raising awareness of sexual harassment. Bottom right, President Joe Biden is vowing to stand with the people of Maui as they recover from the deadly wildfires. The president and first lady toured the damage today. At least 114 people have been killed in the fires. That number is expected to rise as search and rescue efforts continue. Ahead at 10:30, new surveillance video shows the moments leading up to a deadly shooting in Canton, how one man's selfless act to protect his family ended up costing his life. And the investigation into Rachel Morin's murder enters its third week, how the Harford County Sheriff's Office is adding urgency to the search for a killer. We are following three big stories at 10:30. Fox 45 News has obtained surveillance video from the deadly Canton shooting Friday morning. The victim's nephew shares his story as the family fights for justice. Much needed relief for Maryland 529 families. The changes the state's treasurer's office is making to help them get their college savings back. And 2 weeks after the murder of Rachel Morin, police are ramping up efforts to find her suspected killer. And tonight we are learning a reward may be on the table for anyone with information surrounding that suspect. Fox 45's Amy Simpson has an update.
It's a case that's made headlines near and far. A Bel Air mother of 5.
It's going to be a 37-year-old, number 2 female, black shorts, dark colored shirt, Rachel Morin.
Found murdered off the local Ma and Pa Trail after going for a run on a summer Saturday evening.
We don't want this to happen again.
Today on Fox 45 Morning News, Harford County Executive Bob Casserly speaking to the unease in the air, and efforts now underway to bring surveillance to the trail after that horrific homicide investigation unfolded along a beloved piece of Bel Air's community.
I've heard from so many folks in the community in the past weeks about how, like Rachel, that was their place of serenity, peace, health, joy, and we've got to give that back to them because they feel that not only have we lost Rachel, but we've lost the peaceful nature of the trail.
Crowds gathering along the Ma and Pa Heritage Trail over the weekend for a walk to honor that local mother. Among them, some of Rachel Morin's family. The family spokesperson pointing to the search for justice after law enforcement shared surveillance of this man late last week. The video was from an alleged home invasion and assault in Los Angeles, California on March 26th. The Harford County Sheriff's Office says this man's DNA was also found at Morin's crime scene, and now the search is on to find him.
There's a sense of encouragement that justice ultimately will be served and that this person will be brought to justice as a result of the work of the Harford County Sheriff's Office.
But as investigators continue to look for Morin's suspected killer,
we don't have any clue where he could be. We don't even know if he's still in Harford County or in the state of Maryland.
The Harford County Sheriff's Office now says its Criminal Investigations Division is working with Metro Crime Stoppers on a reward, though no further details were given on when that reward announcement might come or how much it might be to help attract information leading to an arrest and conviction. Today, Fox 45 News also questioned Governor Wes Moore's office if any reward money will be offered by the state of Maryland to help find Rachel Morin's suspected killer. But a spokesperson sidestepped the question about reward money, saying the administration can't comment on an ongoing investigation, though the governor is closely monitoring the tragedy and confident the perpetrator will be brought to justice. Meanwhile, 2 years ago, in the fall of 2021, then Governor Larry Hogan announced a $100,000 reward as authorities searched for the person who killed 69-year-old Evelyn Player, who was found murdered inside a Baltimore City church. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Again, here's what we know about the suspect. He is believed to be 5'9", about 160 pounds. Police say he is of Hispanic descent and in his 20s. The surveillance video allegedly shows him after assaulting a young girl during a home invasion in Los Angeles back in March. Anyone who recognizes him should call the Harford County Sheriff's tip line at the number you see there on your screen or send an email to rmtips@hartfordsheriff.org. Police in Havre de Grace say a 17-year-old was stabbed at a McDonald's along Pulaski Highway around 2 o'clock this afternoon. Police say the suspect is also 17 and was arrested. The victim was taken to shock trauma. Police say the two teens knew each other. Anybody with information is asked to call Harford County Police. Well, the Baltimore teacher charged with sexual abuse while working at the Gilman School will be detained until his federal trial. Last week, federal prosecutors arrested and charged Christopher Bendon. He already is facing state charges. Detectives believe there are multiple victims in the case. City Council will hold confirmation hearings for Acting Commissioner Richard Worley and Fire Chief James Wallace on September 21st. Acting Commissioner Worley's hearing was originally scheduled for last week, but it was postponed. Worley is holding a number of public meetings to hear some feedback from the community this month. The next one is tomorrow. Also, during today's council hearing, the city councilman Eric Costello introduced a bill that would require BGE to obtain a permit to install gas meters or regulators on private property. The permit would require the utility company to get the homeowner's consent for the work. The bill is in response to the ongoing legal battle between BGE and several residents over external gas regulators.
This bill would ban the installation of external gas regulators on any property structure in the city with 5 or less dwelling units, so as to not conflict with the Flower Branch Act passed by the General Assembly in 2021. We have heard the concerns from neighborhoods across our entire city, not just historic neighborhoods, but all neighborhoods. And it has been our position that BGE has not provided appropriate justification as to why external regulators are necessary from a safety perspective.
The councilman promised to introduce this bill earlier this month after a city council hearing on the external gas regulators. Hundreds of city residents are signed onto a lawsuit to stop the project, citing safety and transparency concerns. A judge will hear the case next month. The council also adopted a resolution tonight to honor the staff at MedStar Harbor Hospital and Shock Trauma for their response to the Brooklyn Day mass shooting, saying they worked heroically to save lives. Mayor Scott and Councilman James Torrance highlighting a bill that would support the city's re-entry efforts for people who serve prison time. The Office of Returning Citizens is designed to get people back on their feet, find housing and work. Torrance says he grew up with incarcerated parents, so this is a personal priority.
This is deeper than just helping people. This is the collateral damage that we have from just one mistake. My mother's mistake was one thing that cost her 5 years away from me and my sister. But when she re-entered, she only had access to being a hairstylist. And from there, she had to navigate and live in public housing because she was relegated to just not family-sustaining wages. So for this, it's personal because if we're going to have a thriving Baltimore, we have to make sure every citizen in the city thrives as well.
Now, this program already exists, and Torrance says city council support will keep it going. Torrance cites similar efforts in cities like Boston and Washington, D.C., saying homicides went down after those programs were established. Newly obtained surveillance video shedding light on the armed robbery that led to a deadly shooting in Canton early Friday morning. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell spoke to a family member of the victim, has the latest on this investigation.
The armed robbery that led to 57-year-old Daryl Benner's death just a half block from Canton Square caught on a neighbor's Ring camera. Watch as the suspect walking in the middle of the street suddenly turns around, pulls out a gun, and points it at the man in a white T-shirt. That man is Jeff Tyree, the nephew of Benner, who would be killed just minutes later.
The one guy with the gun, started waving it in my face. And, he just told me, kick everything out of your pockets. So, natural instinct, being a father, I got babies, they need me. So I was like, here's everything, my phone, AirPods, wallet, car keys, take it.
Also in this video on the far right of your screen is Tyree's car. This red Dodge Charger parked several yards away. Tyree says one of the armed suspects later started to get into his car when his uncle stepped in.
He just came out here in a selfless act, trying to defend me and my property. He went into the yard, came back out with a BB gun as the dude was getting in my car and started my car. And that's when he confronted him. Then, I just heard the 4 shots.
That's when I'm getting a call for a shooting. 1023 South Curly, male shot.
My husband, and he's like, I said, you need to sit down. He's like, he's been shot. He's like, and it doesn't look good.
But he did take his final breath laying in my lap. Covered in blood.
Benner was pronounced dead at the scene, just steps from the home he shared with his wife and family.
I can't believe that it actually happened. It still hasn't sunk in. I still can't believe he's gone. I just want him back. I just want to walk down in my basement and see him sitting in his chair and him saying, haha, the joke's on you. I got you, babe. That's just how he was. That's how we were.
Benner's chair now marks where he lost his life, the spot decorated with flowers, candles, and purple and black balloons, a representation of his love for the Ravens and Baltimore. The family, heartbroken and frustrated, looking for more police and more action from city leaders to get the city's crime crisis under control.
The brutality and, the mentality of people, it's sickening. Doing whatever they want, and the car that they were in was stolen. It was another stolen vehicle. We're heartbroken, we're devastated. He was a great guy.
Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News. Families who saw their Maryland 529 savings accounts depleted by an interest calculation error may finally be getting some closure. Today, Maryland State Treasurer Derek Davis announced the state will no longer use the existing manual interest calculation tool, and the money has been restored into those accounts just in time for fall tuition payments. Affected families say today is a major step in the right direction.
When I look at this, it's like, all right, this is a good move. It means that we are moving into a more normal stage in this. Not everybody is addressed, but at least a good chunk of people are addressed in this.
Well, if the correct amount is still not showing up in your account, the treasurer says a claims process will begin shortly. Howard County Executive Kelvin Ball says the entire area affected by yesterday's water main break in Elkridge now has water restored. The break happened just after 3:30 yesterday afternoon at the Elkridge pumping station. The crack was about 3 feet long. 100,000 residents lost water service for a brief time period, and now emergency crews are working to repair the water main. Ball says emergency crews will conduct a follow-up on the repair this Wednesday night. A businessman and reality TV star is jumping into the Bud Light marketing controversy. The National Desk's Angela Brown explains.
You may know Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. The businessman, now a traveling teacher, telling Fox and Friends he will be teaching at business schools across the country this fall on the Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light marketing campaign that he calls an extraordinary case.
So you spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year building up a brand, and then you have to ask yourself, on a campaign that really brings you into a discussion around gender identity, is that the right thing for my beer brand?
Anheuser-Busch InBev still feeling the fallout from their marketing campaign with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney. The brewing giant releasing this revenue report just days ago, citing revenue in the U.S. declining by 10.5% in the April to June period from a year ago, primarily due to the volume decline of Bud Light. Campus reform correspondent and business major Michael Duke says the class is needed.
As far as my courses go, I don't think we touch enough on target audiences, target markets, and I don't think that's something that's really focused on.
The Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light marketing campaign was polarizing. Some conservatives were calling for a boycott of Bud Light, while supporters of Dylan Mulvaney said the brand did not do enough to stand by her. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
We are getting ready for a big drop in temperatures. Highs tomorrow will only reach the 80s and will stay there for a few more days. I'll let you know when to expect the next warm up in my Weather Authority forecast.